Colton arriving for the G7 summit in Brussels, the crisis in the Ukraine will be the main issue discussed. The other 6 leaders taking part will also address issues on trade, security and climate change. This will be the first G7 summit hosted by the European Union. Originally, a G8 summit was to take place in Sochi, Russia. But with that nation's invasion and annexation of the Crimea in Ukraine, the decision was made to expel Russia from this summit and move it to Brussels. With Russia, President Colton must manage this diplomatic falling out, as the United States relies on Russia's space program to ferry astronauts to the International Space Station.
Do we have any idea what he wants?
No, he just wanted, or more like demanded, a meeting.
And he flew from Colorado to Brussels.
Oh, must be important.
Bill?
Yes, Madam President.
I need a moment.
You want to start with this one, sir?
Yes, and the rest can follow in this order. A coffee, Major?
Oh, no thank you, sir. I am fully leaded. Sir, do you think she'll believe us?
Believe? Well, that's a good question. But no matter what she believes, it won't change the facts. Have you met the president?
No, sir, I haven't. I almost did when she came to inspect Vandenberg last month.
Ah, yes, her surprise base inspections. They aren't going as well as you'd think.
Sir?
Oh, forget it. Just a word of advice. Colton uses Seward as a pit bull. If she asks you a direct question, you give her a complete answer. The last thing you want to do is get into a debate with her. Trust me.
Understood, sir. Will anyone else?
Excuse me. Who are you?
You must be General Rieger and Major Sampson.
This is a closed-door meeting.
Yes, the door is closed. I'm Cedric Yona, and this is James Griffin.
Well, excuse me, Mr. Yona. What is your purpose here?
General, when I was advised of this meeting, my colleague and I were asked to attend.
And who was that?
Who was what?
Who asked you to attend?
General, Major, let's not get off on the wrong foot, shall we? You know as well as I that on occasion, outside experts are called in to assist.
Madam President.
General Rieger, I haven't seen you since that Navstar launch at Cape Canaveral. How's the directorate?
As always, Madam President, 100%. I'd like you to meet Major Ellen Sampson.
Ah, Major Sampson, a pleasure.
Likewise, Madam President.
And where are you stationed?
Space and Missile Systems Center, El Segundo.
Ah, I should have figured when old John here called a meeting that space would factor into it. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam President.
Forgive me, Madam President, but I thought this was going to be a closed meeting.
Oh, my dear General, you know my policy, always a witness, or in this case, an expert or two. And of course, you both know Elizabeth Seward, my National Security Advisor.
Elizabeth.
Sam.
General, Major.
Elizabeth, perhaps you could introduce our other 2 guests, although it looked like you were all exchanging pleasantries when we walked in.
Of a sort.
General, Major. This is Cedric Yona, Science Attaché to the President, and James Griffin, who was with JPL and now the Shiner Center of Science.
Oh, yes, the DC think tank behind the upgrades to the Deep Space Network.
The very one, Major. No point in launching satellites if we can't communicate with them.
Agreed.
Yona. Yona, that's Hebrew for dove, isn't it?
It is.
Well, now that we're all introduced, General, this is your bailiwick. I can give you just about an hour.
Thank you, Madam President. If you would all take your seats.
That's a pretty old school setup for this level of briefing.
Old school? A Faraday shield is protecting this room and the adjacent hallway from electromagnetic fields.
Well, that explains why the Secret Service confiscated our cell phones before we entered the elevator. But there will be a record of this meeting. Simply put, there's a hole in the president's schedule because she's here. I mean, how long do you think it'll take before some intrepid reporter starts asking questions that I'm just gonna guess you don't want answered?
Ma'am, the answer is simple. The commander of Air Force Space Command requested an emergency meeting with the president.
And as commander, I must protest the presence of these 2 civilians. They're not part of my command.
No, they're part of mine. Shall we get on with it?
Of course, Madam President. Major. This point in space is known as Lagrange Point 2, just about 1 million miles from Earth. This is one of 5 such celestial points relative to Earth, but is Lagrange Point 2 that observes the Earth, Moon, and Sun. They're called parking places in space because the combined gravitational forces of all 3 bodies create a place of equilibrium. So a satellite can literally park there and make observations.
Madam President, when the James Webb Telescope launches in 2019, it'll be parked at this point. Sorry, General.
Please tell me you didn't request this meeting to give me a science lesson.
No, Madam President. Next slide, Major. You mentioned the Directorate earlier. As you know, the Directorate oversees GPS, launch, military, and other highly classified communications for the Department of Defense. You're looking at a Milstar satellite in geostationary orbit. Now, that orbit is about 24,000 miles from Earth. As you may know, Madam President, we have 5 of these military communications satellites in orbit. On August 15 last year, this satellite intercepted a signal that originated from Lagrange Point 2. At first, our concern was that someone was trying to hack into Milstar. But at the time, that didn't seem to be the case.
Why is that?
The only satellite operating in LG2 is a European Space Agency space observatory called Gaia. And it's not configured to communicate with Milstar.
Then what was it?
Another satellite.
But you just said that the only one operating there was,
Gaia.
yes, thank you.
Who intercepted this signal?
My unit did.
You sure it wasn't an Earth-based signal that reflected off some piece of space debris?
Positive.
Major, science isn't about positives. It's about a probable set of conclusions based on facts.
Emissions from a neutron star?
Negative.
Comet?
Negative. This signal was in the upper band of the electromagnetic spectrum.
What part?
X-ray. And before you tell me it's not possible scientifically, you know as well as I that NASA has been looking into X-ray transmissions.
But it's not NASA.
No. And it's not the Europeans.
Yeah, but this signal could be faked.
Sure, if there was a transmitter 900 AUs from Earth, but considering Voyager 1 is just over 100 AUs from Earth, I would say it's unlikely.
Look, this could be Russia, China. Hell, it could be Iran for all we know.
With all due respect, there isn't a satellite launch from this planet that we don't know about.
General, what exactly are you trying to tell me?
Madam President. It was a satellite of extraterrestrial origin.
Dear God.
General, how did you get this picture?
Yes, how did you? Satellites are next to impossible to image. There's virtually no ambient light in space.
To be frank, we got very lucky. Major, do we have a slide of the X-37?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
We're being watched.
So it would seem.
But by who? Or what?
Madam President, if I may, just bring us all back to Earth for a moment. Since the Soviet Union launched Sputnik in 1957, there have been over, 6,000 satellites launched into space? This predates the National Reconnaissance Office and the Space Surveillance Networks. I'll agree with the General that the United States tracks all launches from around the world now, but in the 1960s, 70s, even 80s, come on, it wasn't technically possible back then.
I had no idea you were such a historian on space, Elizabeth.
That's why I'm here. I briefed her.
Oh, did you? Interesting.
Ready, sir.
Thank you, Major. Madam President, you're familiar with the Boeing X-37 space plane? On the day of discovery, this plane was on its second test flight. On my order, I sent it to the place in LG-2 where the signal originated. With onboard lights and cameras, the following images were produced.
Well, thank you for confirming the rumored EM drive, but that still doesn't confirm that it's extraterrestrial in origin.
Oh, it does. When the satellite engages its engines and leaves quickly, we haven't been able to track it since.
Then all you have, General, is a picture that could lend itself to a science fiction story.
Mr. Science Attaché, in addition to the X-ray transmission that we have, the X-37 also recorded some very interesting readings.
What kind?
Propulsion. Yes, we have an experimental ion drive on the X-37, but that pales in comparison to the anti-gravity drive on the satellite. So, we're no longer in the world of science fiction, but fact. And the fact remains, Madam President, that a satellite of extraterrestrial origin was discovered at LG-2 with communication and propulsion technologies that do not exist on Earth.
Who else knows about this?
Aside from those in this room, only a handful of texts from Samson's unit and Senator Hadrian. The signal, telemetry, and mission records of the X-37 are now controlled by my office.
You know, if Sorensen finds out about this or any of these other alien disclosure groups, we're in for it.
Sorensen?
Oh, a political activist that heads up Solar Research Group. He tried putting pressure on the president to disclose what you knew about UFOs, or more precisely, the extraterrestrial presence issue.
Christ, I need some coffee. Let's take 5.
The government has painted itself into a real corner with this UFO matter. Damn if they say something, damn if they don't. Only believe what they see.
Doesn't matter. It's academic.
Do you think Rieger will be a help or a hindrance?
Please. He's a career military officer on a mission. Which actually gives me an idea.
What's your impression of the president?
If I didn't know any better, sir, I'd say she's scared.
Aren't you? Hell, aren't we all? With everything we know, we should have seen this one coming. Keep your eye on Cedric.
That's not hard, sir. He's keeping them on me.
If an opportunity presents itself, take it. We need to know more about him.
I can't believe this.
Neither can I.
What would your advice be?
Well, whatever happens, there's only one thing you have to remember. You're the president.
Madam President! It was truly an honor to meet you, but I must beg to leave. I have a flight to catch.
Oh, I'm sorry to see you go. I've enjoyed your commentary on this, what are we calling it? Development or discovery?
Revelation.
That's as good a word as any. James, I'd like you to stay in touch with Elizabeth's office. I might have some follow-up questions for you.
Of course, Madam President.
Leaving in the middle of a presidential briefing.
I thought you'd be happy, General.
What could possibly be more important?
You know the old adage. Ask me no questions.
And I'll tell you no lies.
Imagine if we did that in Washington.
Mr. Griffin, I do want to remind you, this meeting is classified.
General, you have my word that no one on this planet will know. Madam President, Madam Advisor General, Major.
Safe travels.
Bill?
Need to get to the field as quickly as possible.
Yes, sir.
General, forgive the obvious. You discovered this alleged alien
There's
satellite.
nothing alleged about it.
You don't mind if I finish, do you? We discovered this satellite on August 15th. Why are we just hearing about this now on June 4th, nearly a year after this incident?
And why brief Senator Hadrian, the chairman of the Senate Committee of Armed Services, before the president?
They make a point, Sean. I'd like an answer before you continue.
To be frank, Madam President, we needed to be certain there was something to brief you on and to compartmentalize the entire operation.
You mean hide it from inquiry?
I mean keep it from the public. That's why I went to Hadrian. Do you think it's a good idea for the public to know about this? Do you? They can barely handle bad weather. That's the one downside of a democracy, disclosure. There's some things that just can't be disclosed. And to ensure compliance with any ridiculous Freedom of Information Act requests, the documentation has been removed from government files. Call it what you want. I call it protecting the people from themselves. And before you utter one more word, the president will agree with me on this.
He's right, Elizabeth. There are just some matters of state that can't be disclosed. Speaking of disclosure, I'd like to know where Mr. Griffin went in such a hurry. Given his background and the subject matter that we're talking about, don't you find it odd that he left so abruptly?
Very well. We went to the European Space Operations Center in Darmstadt, Germany. We want to know if the Gaia Observatory reported anything unusual. We would have told you, Madam President, but we didn't want any military interference.
Well, you're gonna have more than military.
General, I'm satisfied. Let's all secure from DEFCON 3, shall we? It's a prudent action, albeit a bit underhanded. So, you haven't been able to track this satellite?
Not the satellite itself.
But I thought the satellite was...
Communications. After we ruled out a hack of Millstar, we believe it came down to line of sight, and that our satellite simply got in the way.
How did you possibly come up with that conclusion?
Our satellites don't communicate via X-ray transmissions. Our satellite simply recorded what it received, or more precisely, what passed through it.
But that still doesn't prove your line of sight theory.
It doesn't disprove it either. It's a theory from many deductions. Fact. No satellite launched from Earth, whether military or civilian, communicates via X-ray transmissions. Fact. The signal terminated over the Atlantic Ocean. Fact. No military or civilian aircraft, surface ships, or submarines were anywhere near the termination of the signal. So where does that leave us?
You tell us, Major.
You're familiar with Arthur Conan Doyle.
Of course.
Once you eliminate the impossible, what remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. Laugh all you want. Madam President, we strongly believe that this satellite was communicating with something that we just can't see. Because the fact remains that a signal must be received by something. The fact that we can't see it does not mean that it doesn't exist.
Your conclusion is ridiculous.
Not nearly as ridiculous as your deliberate dismissal. You're supposed to be the national security advisor. Aren't you the least bit concerned about this?
I'm concerned that Russia, a member of the United Nations Security Council, has invaded the Crimea, and the president should be talking to our allies upstairs rather than listening to fantasy downstairs, okay? I'm concerned that you are wasting the president's time, but hey, look, I get it. You have a picture and a signal and you think that
Major, excuse me. You are also painfully aware that an X-ray can originate from a supernova and other space phenomena.
But it does come down to modulation, doesn't it? A supernova isn't trying to communicate. You also know, or maybe you don't, that NASA has been experimenting with this technology. Madam President, if NASA is successful, the result will be high rates of data transmitted over vast distances of space and the ability to communicate with hypersonic vehicles during atmospheric re-entry. Mr. Griffith would confirm all this, but he's left for ESOC.
General, have you decoded these transmissions?
This is why it's taken so long to bring this to your attention. I'll take over, Major. Madam President, what I'm about to disclose has a NATO security classification as CTS. It's cosmic, top secret. Highest security rating possible. Before I continue, I need your authorization to declassify this information to him.
I have more clearance than you could possibly know.
Not with me, you don't.
Madam President, a moment. Real news. If Cedric is in this room, he has all the necessary clearances. Why ask you?
He wants to know where my alliances fall. He's plotting something. What I don't know yet, but body language speaks volumes. Rico wants something.
And Cedric wants to know what?
We need to find out where this is going. General, you have my authorization.
The planet Earth. Designated the blue marble during Apollo 17. Stunning, isn't it? But here's what you have to know if you plan to land on it. There are presently over 3,500 satellites in orbit. We are tracking over 500,000 pieces of orbital debris. Now, this traffic is traveling at 17,000 miles per hour. In Earth's atmosphere, civilian and military flight tracking is just as important. This year alone, there will be over 100,000 civilian flights around the world. The military, NATO, ESA, and other civilian and commercial partners have to navigate this traffic for more reasons than I can count. Apparently, so do those that control this satellite.
What exactly are you saying, General?
Navigation. This satellite wasn't just observing Earth. It was communicating in the same way that we communicate with our spacecraft and aircraft. It wasn't just imagery either. Transponder codes for all civilian and military satellites and aircraft were recorded. There were also weather forecasting models. We also found what we believe to be a flight plan, leaving from the Atlantic Ocean and off the planet.
A flight plan?
Where did the plan track to?
That we don't know.
Something isn't just watching us. They're already here.
Precisely.
It's curious, isn't it?
What is?
This. Governments spend billions on space exploration in the search for extraterrestrial life. Earth scientists have discovered nearly 1,000 extrasolar planets, some in the habitable zone. Radio telescopes beaming and beaming, hoping to make contact. And what happens? You discover they're right here. Congratulations, you can both add another medal to your fruit salads.
Excuse me, that's
Cedric,
disrespect.
the General and Major are decorated officers with a track record of outstanding...
Madam President, forgive me, I mean no disrespect. It's a compliment to your command.
Well, then compliment us with your scientific insight on what we may be dealing with.
There are many insights we could make. Just looking at the configuration and size of the satellite means that there could be a similarity to Earth's development in terms of communications. Anti-gravity propulsion, though, that's a revolution. If, in fact, the X-37's readings were correct. It means that propulsion can be achieved at near light speed in space. And on planets like Earth, gravity cancellation technology would make conventional airports and airplanes obsolete. In essence, picture a helicopter without the need for rotating blades. Now, if such a satellite were to originate from another solar system, it could be one nearby, say Gliese or Proxima Centauri. Ask anyone who has worked in this field and they'll tell you the navigation of space is complicated and dangerous. It looks empty to the layperson, but in fact is littered with debris, like Earth orbit. Now, for a long, extended journey, they would need, or at least want, something along the lines of asteroid deflectors for starters.
Asteroid deflectors?
Yes, devices that fly apart but in concert with the primary space vehicle, to repel, deflect, or even destroy space debris that poses a threat to navigation. NASA is working on a plan now to install laser cannons on the ISS for just such debris. It's a shame the satellite disappeared. Imagine the knowledge if it was reverse engineered. Of course, there's one thing you can't tell from these images or even the transmission.
And what's that?
How long this satellite has been in orbit. Could be 1 year, could be 100. It could be 1,000. My point is, wherever they're from, regardless of what they look like, they are an advanced civilization, but not infallible.
The comm signal that passed through our satellite.
Exactly.
What do you think they want?
You don't need to be a scientist to answer that, Madam President. I would postulate the same thing NASA wants when New Horizons intercepts Pluto next year.
Answers.
Answers are something that we need, Cedric. So, where do we go from here, General?
It's not where we go. It's where we are. Using our military satellite networks in cooperation with other nations and ground stations around the world, I've assembled a team of scientists and engineers in various agencies to detect and track this alien presence. But our present funding and certain interagency rules prohibit us from taking this further. I need your authorization to divert funding from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration Authorization Act of 2014. This funding will be placed at the National Reconnaissance Office and administered by Space Command. NASA won't ask any questions. And any budget shortfall will be handled by Congress under Senator Hadrian's lead. Operation Shredder.
What are you afraid of, General?
It's not about being afraid. It's about knowing who they are and what they want. And let us be clear. Nobody undertakes a multi-light-year space journey just because it's Monday.
That's right, General. A journey. And you don't know what they want or who they are. You are assuming just on your actions alone they're malevolent.
And what evidence do you have that they're benevolent?
Have they attacked you? No.
We don't know that. We don't know what they're doing here, but they certainly have some sort of stealth technology.
And you don't? Why do you fly your stealth bombers and drones into hostile territory? To protect yourself. Hasn't it dawned on you that these, whatever they are doing the same?
No, it hasn't. Because in our case, we know who we're dealing with. Human beings.
Mr. Yonah, this is about military preparedness. It's that simple. We don't know what we're dealing with.
Exactly. You don't. This action into the unknown could seriously put our national security in jeopardy. Never mind the security of our planet. Isn't this the time to act on fact rather than fiction?
That's the point, to get some. We are operating literally in the darkness of space. The whole point of Operation Troy is to shed light on this darkness.
Indeed. This is a time to study and investigate. Can you imagine what you could learn from them?
All we've learned is that we're being watched, and our land, air, and space assets are being tracked. To what end, who knows?
Would you not agree that this discovery gives credence to somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known?
This isn't the time or place to quote Carl Sagan.
That quote is mistakenly attributed to him when in fact it was created by a reporter.
What's your point, Cedric?
My point, Madam President, is that in light of the magnitude of this discovery, it's too easy for mistakes to be made.
All you scientists are alike. You deal with the unknown, but you're remarkably predictable in your actions.
As are you, General. You sadly deal in absolutes because the unknown terrifies you.
General, if I sign this, what's the objective of Operation Troy?
Identification. If they're going to watch us, we'll return the favor. The objective is to identify where they are on this planet and, if possible, the solar system. Once identified, communications will be open. My concern, Madam President, is despite them being here, they've made no effort to communicate with us. Instead, a silent, stealth-like invasion has already happened. Just because a bomb hasn't been dropped does not mean the war has not begun. So yes, I am afraid. Afraid of the unknown, as you should be, Madam President, and everyone else in this room.
Your xenophobia, General, is painfully apparent. What does Rieger stand for? Something Germanic, isn't it? How fitting someone with a Germanic name talks about identifying people. How fitting such a person commands a military apparatus.
How dare you compare?
I'm not comparing you to anyone except yourself. Unless people like me speak up loud and often at the moment it matters, history has a strange habit of repeating itself. How many times in the history of mankind have people been identified by the fear of others? How many times have they been marked by the ignorance of hate under the organization of the state? Those that wouldn't open their eyes, those that failed to learn, to make any attempt to understand that just because you don't know someone doesn't mean they're your enemy. They could be your friend.
A friend doesn't operate in stealth. They're in the open with a hand of friendship or at least curiosity, not some comm signal revealing the identification of our planes, our ships, and our submarines. With the exception of you, everyone in this room has taken the oath. It's our job to protect this country against enemies, both foreign and domestic. And if this doesn't qualify as foreign, you can have all my stars, because that is exactly where they're from. And until the day comes that they reveal themselves and their intentions to us, they will be treated as a cancer in our world.
And be eradicated. You're right, General. I haven't taken an oath. Because how many times throughout history do these oaths end in "so help me God"? You may be looking for a divine intervention if your plans bear fruit.
This fruit you so longingly are looking to accomplish could usher in a new revelation. Has that even remotely occurred to you? Instead, acting on fear of what you don't understand, you want to detect, track, and identify them, and you don't even know what them is. I'm a man of science, and one could say of history. When your government enacted the Indian Removal Act, it never occurred to President Jackson that someday the Native Americans' unique place in the world might be needed. Thankfully, they and their language survived and helped you end a world war. Has it occurred to you that whoever they are might someday help you in your hour of need? Maybe they already are, but you want to identify them because you are scared of what you don't understand. If you don't want to understand space, why look up? Keep your head down. Thankfully, Galileo never did. But by looking up, he went against the state. Not a state of arms, but a state of mind and beliefs. Beliefs so distorted centuries later that millions were detected, tracked, and identified by a state so consumed with fear from within, they couldn't see without. It is ironic in so many ways that you have a space program from that failed state. A state that is now an ally, whose chancellor went before your Congress and recounted one phrase of their Constitution that proclaims, "Human dignity shall be inviolable." Sadly, the action you are postulating today is a violation of that dignity and the oath you took. Simply, there is no price one can set on the future of humanity, so long as it is tempered with the best intentions of mankind. You said those words, Madam President, to your Congress to fund the space program, not to militarize it. I wonder what giant leap for mankind will be attained if you sign his order. Indeed, Madam President, the Trojan horse is in this room.
Sit down! Well, what a wonderful speech that was. Full of life, perspective, and replete with history. But not one solid contemporary idea on what we should do. Now, history's littered with people like you. All talk and no action. Neville Chamberlain would have loved you. But yes, I love this uniform and what it represents. And I have no problem, issue, or reservation saying that I support and defend the Constitution of the United States, period. And if that goes against your moral standings and sensibilities, so be it. That's your right. Because as an American, you have that choice. That's the beauty of the Constitution. Freedom of choice. And if that freedom gets bloodied along the way, so be it. But I no longer have the time, inclination, or interest in debating this with you any longer. I live in the here and now. Not last week, and not 7 centuries ago. And though history may have some lessons to learn from, I have no interest in writing its last chapter. And I'll be goddamned if something else writes it for us. Forgive me, Madam President. What say you?
Seems odd, doesn't it? That we're here in a bunker like wars long past. But today, we decide on a fate that none of us know or can even predict. I've always been a supporter of the space program, you know that. But unlike presidents before me, I am faced with the revelation that mankind is not alone. I have to believe that our intention has always been one of science, but let's not kid ourselves. There's always been a military component to this next frontier. But this isn't about the science of anything. We need to know who or what we're dealing with before we can deal with them. They have the upper hand of what we don't know, but that is something that we need to know. It's not about fear, but intelligence. I think we can all agree that before the New World was discovered, all Erickson had was the horizon to look at and the stars to guide him. But we need to know what's beyond this horizon, and why, out of over 200 billion stars, they were guided to ours. I'm sorry. It's this world first. God help us.
Thank you, Madam President. For obvious reasons, updates will not appear on your daily intelligence brief.
You can update my office, General.
I'll update the President.
My job as the National Security Advisor is to
Advise the President on matters of terrestrial security, not space. Madam President. Let's plan to meet when you get back to Washington. I'm sure I'll have an update for you then.
Very good, General.
Of course, all my best to the G7. This invasion by the Russians, not good. Hard to believe they were once an ally. Major,
Yes, sir.
I'll see you at the briefing.
Yes, sir.
Madam President.
Major, I'd like to have that file. Yes, Madam President. And the USB?
Madam President, I don't think I...
Of course, Madam President. How many of us have dreamed of this moment? The moment when we learn that we're not alone. And what's the first step that we take? A military one. History will record the day I sign this order. Oh my God, what have I done?
You've done what is necessary for the moment. Because something tells me the alternative may have been far worse. While I don't agree with it, I understand your decision. History is replete with moments like this. But moments are never the whole picture. That is yet to be painted.
I wish I could share your spirited optimism, Cedric.
Optimism is what we must have, Madam President, so the darkest hour turns into the brightest day.
Madam President, it was a pleasure to meet you today. I'm sorry the circumstances.
Think nothing of it, Major. These are revealing times, if not conflicted ones.
May I ask which base you might be visiting next?
You may ask.
Major, may I ask where you're headed? I could use a ride to the field.
Mr. Griffin was your ride, I gather?
Yes, I could hire a car.
No, that would be fine. I'm not due back at Chev until later this afternoon. I'd be happy to do it.
Thank you. Madam President, until our next meeting.
Safe travel, Cedric.
Madam President.
Elizabeth?
Ma'am. With the stroke of a pen, I just unleashed hell on earth.
Where am I taking you?
It's a private field about 10 kilometers from the city. I'll direct you.
If you have the address, I can GPS.
Why did you sign it?
We needed to know who we're dealing with. Since the knowledge of an alien presence on Earth was conveyed to me by my predecessor on the day after I assumed office, my fear has always been that at some point the military would wrest control of our armed forces from civilian command. It's easier to monitor him if I agree with him. If I fight him, he'll burrow into a hole so deep and black, not even Kepler could find him. Issue the code Argonaut 2.
Argonaut, he's not here.
Yes, he is. Contact his embassy.
Yes, Madam President.
Elizabeth, everyone's been identified. Take every precaution.
Senator Hadrian.
I'm sure you've had enough formalities for one day. Paul will do.
And so will this.
Excellent.
Anything on Yona?
No, nothing. There are no records on a Cedric Yoner in any civilian or military database.
He's a science attaché for Colton.
No, he isn't. Our intel can't decide if he was invited by Seward or Griffin.
And what about him, Griffin?
He checks out so far. But if he was in Germany, he didn't go through Brussels.
How did he leave?
Helicopter. No flight plan. And even more disturbing, we've lost him on the radar.
That's not possible in this airspace.
Someone made it possible. Just like this.
What the hell?
They're all like this from the meeting. But if you take a look at your drive, they're all fine. That camera we hid in your fruit salad seemed to work wonderfully. And we picked up your signal as soon as you came topside.
It's not mechanical.
No, and I'm afraid Samson's going to have the same results. By the way, we haven't heard from her since she went down underneath for the meeting. Has she reported back to you?
That's disturbing. I disabled the Faraday shield after I left. Click back to the meeting. No, something's not right. No background, no picture. You don't think he could be one of the people?
Who knows?
Well, whoever he is, he knows who I am.
But we know who he works with. And this meeting was always about intelligence.
Yes?
Madam President, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and the President of the Russian Federation.
Allison, thank you so much.
Well, I was just upstairs, but...
Sergey, I appreciate this. You know I wouldn't have called Argonaut.
Elizabeth Bridges.
Stephen, where is Elizabeth?
She's in communication with the Sanhedrin Council.
I see. Let us know when she returns. Thank you.
Madam President,
Allison, there's coffee, tea?
You didn't push the panic button because of a satellite we already knew about. Your military is out of control.
And yours isn't? You invaded and annexed the Crimea.
Crimea's parliament voted for independence.
Oh, please. After you installed a pro-Russian government.
Your sanctions against us
Okay.
will not be.
Helen, we're not here to talk about matters of state.
You're right. Of course. My apologies.
Well, now that we have détente, Helen, Argonaut 2 is only called when one of us faces an imminent outside threat, but this isn't outside, it's inside.
I had no idea you were such a historian on space, Elizabeth.
That's why I'm here. I briefed her.
Well, one thing was quite clear. Seward and Yona are not casual acquaintances. I wonder, have we been played?
In what sense?
There are only two possibilities. Either they made a mistake, which I doubt, or they deliberately sent a signal through Millstar to smoke us out. I don't think it was the former.
Why would they possibly do that?
Answers. The crash in 47. The conference in 72. He mentioned reverse engineering and seemed to go off a cliff when I told him we decoded the signal. We've been waiting for a move. This could have been it.
No, I don't see it. Would you have given the Taliban classified intel to disclose their exact locations? No. Misinformation, of course. And you remember the day the signal was cracked, and you took the information and clarified it with our records? You nearly had a stroke. And the method we used to crack that signal? The Geneva Convention doesn't apply to them.
Them.
Does he know about Apollo?
This invasion by the Russians is not good. Hard to believe they were once an ally. Helen, this is bigger than Apollo. It transcends all of us.
Jesus Christ.
And he's not working alone.
What was her reaction?
Dejected.
An insurgency.
I suspect in all our militaries. That's why I called Argonaut 2. Like the first during the war, the only way to win this one is if we cooperate.
Rieger gives a whole new meaning to fifth column.
What about Hadrian? Is he part of this insurgency or just an unwilling pawn?
It's hard to say at this point. His committee has oversight over the military, so it makes sense that he's in communication with them. And there's also a rumor that he's going to be Anderson's VP pick in the next presidential election.
Then we should keep him close.
Telling Colton about Apollo was the right thing to do. She can't do anything about this publicly, but we can privately. This is about parity. The playing field needs to be level.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My God. We're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west.
That was as close as we ever got.
Nothing the Air Force has can compete with any of these. We need to get at least one of them. What's the update with our prototype?
In about 36 to 48 months. What if she shows up? We can't deny the Commander-in-Chief access. If she learns what we've diverted funding from NASA's Orion program for...
That's why you went in with Troy, to make this diversion legal. Besides, too many of Sampson's group already know about the signal. We had to tell the president.
The meeting with Rieger was never about discovering the satellite, but who would surface from within the military. That was their plan. Since 72, they've been desperate for intelligence. Can't say I blame them. But today, both sides lost because all of the key players have been revealed to each other. If anyone was a pawn, it was me.
And Cedric came to the meeting? He hasn't been seen in public since the war.
He insisted. He tried to reason with him, but there was no changing his mind. Rieger only heard and saw what he wanted to.
There's no choice then. We need to keep the peace. At any cost. Because the next war could throw us to the Dark Ages.
Then we need a grand alliance and a united front.
If Colton shows up, she'll need to make a choice. Either this world or theirs. Because until we know the extent this alien force has on us, there's only one thing left to do.
Put me through to Space Command at Peterson Air Force Base. This is General Rieger. By authorization of the President of the United States, initiate Operation Troy.
Rieger's got everyone on the offensive, so we need to keep all eyes looking down at Earth rather than above it.
Conflicts.
Yes, and regional wars that we can contain through back channels like this one. And then while that front is moving forward, we can start gathering intelligence on Rieger's operation.
Follow the money.
Exactly. The Pentagon's Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program ran out of money in 2012, so he can't hide behind that. And he's probably already tapped what he feels the CBO and Treasury won't discover, along with Black Ops money. But now he needs money for something else. Something big, I can feel it. And it's not the SAT networks, they're already up and running.
Well, while the money is being traced, there is plenty of hotspots to ignite regional conflicts. What we have to decide.
Excuse me. Let's hit pause for a moment. Before we start playing God, don't you think the time has come that they reveal themselves?
They tried that, Allison, in 72. I agree with Rieger on one point. We all know that despite the yearning of the masses wanting to know that they're not alone in this universe, they actually prefer it that way. Look, I don't like this job any more than you do, but no prime minister or president should be saddled with this knowledge, never mind responsibility. That is the hand we've been dealt. Thank God. So if we're gonna play cards in this cosmic game of poker, I'll aim for a royal.
And let's be clear, Allison. This is not about playing God. It is about delaying revelation. Rieger thinks he knows his enemy, but his enemy is not who he thinks it is. He is acting conventionally. And if it's true that like-minded people in our respective military and intelligence operations have been compromised and are following him, then the only thing left for us to do is to make their job on Earth as difficult as possible. We of all nations should know that peace is not bloodless. The last thing any of us need is a united insurgency. To quote one of your predecessors, this is no time for ease of comfort. It is time to dare and endure.
Sergei, I think we can all agree that nothing about this is easy or comforting. But when the day comes that we no longer question ourselves, we become the very people we're trying to defeat. Let us hope we endure this.
I understand. Samson left with Cedric 15 minutes ago. And there's a radar and communications blackout that radiates out 15 kilometers from the city.
Griffin disappears. Cedric can't be identified. No comms. This can't be a coincidence.
Put me through to Commander Halsey.
You should continue pushing into Donbas.
What about Security Council and NATO?
3 of the 5 permanent members are in this room. Ukraine is not part of NATO, so Article 5 doesn't apply. Germany will complain. But their economy relies on your good graces, so it will go nowhere. Maybe superficial sanctions, but that's as far as it will go.
Coalition airstrikes against ISIL will be starting next month. With our intelligence, we can assist ISIL's reach outside their caliphate.
Dear God, Helen. Do you know what you're saying? If this gets out...
Allison, if you have a pious solution for this, we're all ears. Arresting Rieger and Hadrian is not an option. First, there's no legal basis for it. I mean, dismissing Rieger would be one thing, but removing a sitting senator? And let's be clear. If cornered, their option could lead to a conflict of biblical proportions. You know that. Just like everyone else in this game, we need intelligence. Not just for them, but for ourselves. Because when this dam breaks, we better know who's on our ark. Debate's over.
Well, as for debate, you know there's a growing voice in the UK to leave the European Union. If the vote is to leave, it will send the markets in turmoil and destabilize the European economy. But we can't force people to vote one way or the other.
Elections can be influenced. Depending on the outcome, we could keep intelligence agencies and governments busy for years. The question you need to ask yourself is, who do you want to occupy the Oval Office after you leave? Who do you think is best equipped to handle matters of space? This is where we keep our friends close, but our enemies closer.
Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The Council has known for some time that there is one hangar that Central cannot see through. Now, as General Rieger has been identified as part of this military insurgency, and with his frequent trips to the base, the time has come where we need to know what's inside that hangar. A bit of history. During the Cold War, Wright was home to the Aeronautical Systems Center and the National Air and Space Intelligence Center. If there was a new aerospace weapon or intelligence system, it was conceived, designed, tested, and deployed from Wright. But it was World War II that brought it home to us. Just after the war, Operation Paperclip landed 200 plus Nazi German scientists and technicians at Wright. The most famous of them was Wernher von Braun, whose Saturn V rockets landed man on the moon in 1969 and resulted in the greatest cover-up in Earth's known history.
Does the Council have any idea what's in that hangar?
None. And security is biometric.
Well, the answer is simple. Right as your next base inspection.
As Commander-in-Chief, you're the only one that can go.
Well, there may be another, but time is short.
If I do this, we lay every card on the table. I think we should wait.
What for? You need to take the same lead with Rieger as you just did with us.
Glad you knew how to get here. It's weird the GPS didn't work. That was a long call you had. I hate teleconference calls, especially when you just have to listen while someone else drones on.
Just because I was listening doesn't mean I wasn't saying anything.
Looks like your ride's not here yet. Do you need to call someone?
Nope. So tell me, Ellen, you've been in the military, what, since high school?
Just about.
What brought you to it, the Air Force specifically?
Well, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to know how to fly. At first it was just the remote control planes, and then before I knew it, I was learning to fly a Cessna in high school. My father showed me.
He was a pilot. Your parents must be proud.
Yes, commercial. He is.
Mom?
She died when I was 10.
Sorry.
Oh, thank you. It's all right. So it was just my dad and me. I used to love when he would sneak me onto the flight deck.
Flying is rather intoxicating, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
You doing some work on the F-35?
Not as much as I would like. The program is a development nightmare.
So I hear. So then you got a degree in aerospace engineering.
Yes, how did you know?
Oh, just an educated guess with your satellite work. Any other reasons why you joined the military? Forgive my asking, I always find the stories interesting.
I guess a sense of adventure, seeing new things, traveling. What about you? What made you so passionate about science and history? That was quite the speech you gave to General Rieger.
Well, when you've been at it as long as I've been, let's just say it's long experience. Long. But for me, it's how science transcends the past, present, and future. I've always been curious, I guess, and want to contribute, wanting to understand the unknown. Something my parents instilled in me. They taught me to understand that once you know the unknown, it no longer frightens you, because you can learn from it. But learning is three-dimensional, not two like Rieger.
You don't like him.
It's nothing to do with like, but it's everything to do with the fact that he came to that meeting for one reason only, to get a signature.
He's always been objective-driven. He didn't rise to the rank he has without being decisive.
True, we all have our objectives. Speaking of, you and your group must have been pretty excited when you made this discovery.
Oh. It was incredible to know that we're not alone. But I'll admit it, I'm scared. Maybe I just don't understand this unknown.
Yet, you see, what was exciting to me was the fact that some civilization found Earth worthy to look at, to study. Kepler may already be looking back. But there's a technology gap, and so many don't understand what they can't see. Someday, direct imaging from Earth will be possible.
I hope I'm around to see that.
Unlike Rieger, at least you want to see. So how long have you worked with him?
Off and on about 10 years. Why?
Do you trust him?
That's quite a question coming from a civilian. It's not a matter of trust. It's about following a chain of command.
And respecting that chain?
Absolutely.
I can imagine then you're conflicted because you're still wondering how he decoded the signal. What did Rieger mean when he said,
"It's everything we knew. We should have seen this one coming"?
How the hell did you hear that? You were across the room.
That doesn't matter. What does is what he meant.
Cedric, I've enjoyed our talk, but I am not disclosing classified information. I think you can wait for your ride alone.
Information that in addition to anti-gravity propulsion, the satellite had stealth technology and in fact disappeared right in front of the X-37. You remember what I told him. How long this satellite has been in orbit? Could be 1 year, could be 100. It could be 1,000. Neither one of you have any idea, and it's been the subject of numerous conversations. There is something we both know that Rieger doesn't.
You sure it wasn't an Earth-based signal that reflected off some piece of space debris?
When I asked you that, you turned ashen white, just like now. It was that moment when you and I made a connection. Simply, you lied to Rieger, either because you didn't understand what you detected or didn't want to understand it. The signal originated on Earth from, say, a radio telescope. That would have been a different story. The transmission originated in the atmosphere to the satellite at LG2, through Milstar and back to its origin.
How do you know all this?
Because I sent it. You know as well as I that Signal's intelligence didn't decrypt the transmission. Your civilian self probably wanted to know how decryption was possible, but your military training told you to just follow command. But something told you to report the origin of the signal differently. With everything we know, what did he mean?
I could go to jail for this.
You're already in a jail of conflict, an untenable command structure.
It's not that I didn't want to understand. I didn't want him to. He's beyond obsessed with anti-gravity propulsion. He brought me and some others in several years ago to go through everything we had on the subject, from Project Sign, Grudge, and Blue Book, to Black Ops aerospace programs. He even once showed us a video of something flying at a headwind of over 120 knots. I say something because it's still unidentified. All of us were caught up in it.
How far did you get?
Theoretically, we made some solid progress. When he had us transfer everything we had to a working group at Wright-Patterson, we were led to believe it was to benefit the F-35 program. We heard nothing for months. Then this signal brought us all back to General Rieger.
Compartmentalize. One group does one thing, another does something else, but only a handful know everything. Classic military structure.
I've been honest with you, Cedric. Now you need to be honest with me. How did you send this signal?
How is a matter of science. But make no mistake, there's no coincidence that your group received this signal. We knew you were monitoring that particular Milstar satellite.
Oh my God. You work for General Rieger, don't you? This was all about intelligence, wasn't it? We've been hearing about security sweeps, surprise base inspections, national security. Oh my God. What have I gotten into?
Ellen, I don't work for Rieger. But yes, this is about intelligence. We need your help.
My help? Wait, we?
In your line of work, do the years 1947 and 1972 have any meaning to you?
47 was Operation Blue Nose, and, well, that ridiculous Roswell story, and 72 was when the Apollo program ended.
Do you know why it ended?
Everyone knows that. To develop the space shuttle. What the? There's someone at the end of the field.
I know. My involvement in all this started before the war.
Iraq?
World War II. There was a justifiable concern that after 2 millennia, your technology wasn't progressing fast enough. If something happened to ours, for whatever reason, there was no backstop. How did Sagan say it? In all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. So a decision was made to advance certain fields of science. I was sent to the Peenemünde Army Research Center in Germany. It was truly the Cape Kennedy of its day. Under the guise of a visiting scientist, I offered assistance here and there, particularly in areas of propulsion and guidance. Well, I got caught up in my work and showed them things I shouldn't have. When I refused to cooperate further, I was arrested and sent to a concentration camp. You can imagine my disgust when Rieger was talking about identification. Not for my people, but the millions. The millions that never went home.
Well, after the camp was liberated, I found myself alone in a field, just waiting to go home. The German scientists were repatriated to the United States and continued their work, or should I say some of my work. There was no choice but to monitor all military installations for developments. A couple of years after the war, a patrol went down in Roswell. For more reasons than I can count, it was impossible to retrieve certain remains of the crew and the aircraft's propulsion and stealth technologies. We had high hopes during the 1960s, though. Perhaps the seeds of science planted in war would come back in peace. When first contact was finally made in 1969, everything seemed to be progressing the way we wanted. Oh, there were concerns in various governments, to say nothing of the military. But the Zenedrian Council felt they had to proceed, that living in the shadows was no longer an option. In 1972, they agreed to meet with your United Nations Security Council to pave the way for revelation that mankind is not alone. First contact, if you will. The military escort never brought them to that meeting. We've been looking for them ever since. You can only imagine my guilt. It didn't matter what our involvement was in your world or our technology. We couldn't find them. It was Griffin's idea for the signal. We had to know who would surface. The signal was too tempting for Rieger. He knew there was only one group that could decrypt it.
Group?
Our parents. The ones your military kidnapped.
Oh, come on. Seriously? You don't honestly expect me to believe any of this, do you?
I only expect you to believe what you can see.
Governor, you asked for this? Good to see you again, Major.
Were there any problems?
Aside from the curator?
I'm not laughing. What did he call you?
Governor.
Governor of what?
You haven't told him?
Nearly everything, but...
Major, Cedric Yona is the governor of Dominion Earth and premier of the Zenedrian Council.
I thought you said it was your parents on this council or whatever.
They were. We ascended after they disappeared. James, let's keep an open comm for transparency. Was there anything else?
During your conference with the council, Central monitored Rieger's call from Chievrus Air Base to Patterson AFB. On his order, GPS and SATCOM Directorate, Echelon, and the Deep Space Network received new detection programming. To avoid intercept, Central has rerouted all comm traffic to the secondary grid.
It should buy us some time.
Rieger also inquired about your whereabouts, Major Sampson. Now, civilian agencies and military installations in the region are on high alert over a radar and communications blackout. The United States and United Kingdoms are claiming it's Russian retaliation over the G7. The Belgian authorities claim it's a terrorist attack. NATO has elevated its alert readiness to amber, and F-16s have been scrambled from Melsbroek AB. Central will hold the blackout until our departure.
My God. How do you know all this?
Why? X-ray communications, Major.
Keep your eye on Cedric.
That's hard, sir. He's keeping them on me.
If an opportunity presents itself, take it. We need to know more about him.
Thank you, James.
Of course.
Major, I look forward to our next meeting. Governor.
There's a hangar at Wright-Patterson that we can't see through. That's why we need your help.
What about your X-ray communication?
Don't mock me. I'm in no mood for it. It's sheathed in the same materials we use. The Crasher 47, the stealth technology. If you know how to manufacture it, it's easily adaptable to structures and satellites. Ellen, I can't stress this next point enough. I know you've heard some fantastic stories today, and by the look on your face, you don't believe any of them. But if Rieger is developing what I think he is, the balance of power could shift in such a direction that life on this planet, as we know it, will be over. Think.
Has it ever occurred to you why the United States has built a military complex that could destroy the world 10 times over? Please don't tell me it's because of the Soviet Union. It's because they know they aren't alone and paranoia is driving this uncontrollable madness. We need to know where our parents are and what's in that hangar. I confess I'm running out of patience, but the alternative to patience is not an option. I've seen war in all its ugliness too many times. The lines of peace need to be drawn here, between us, on this field, in this moment. You sadly deal in absolutes because the unknown terrifies you.
General, if I sign this, what's the objective of Operation Troy?
Identification.
So help me, God. What you've said is either all true or all a lie. All my years of training have told me to listen, stay calm, and to act decisively. But the oath I took isn't just a set of words. General Rieger is one thing, but the president is another. I cannot pledge my allegiance on just your words alone.
And you need to ask yourself, once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth.
Doveriai no proveriai.
Trust, but verify.
This is exactly what they want. How can you trust her?
How can I not try?
Can you see the forest for the trees?
God. You told us everything at that meeting. Everything.
You only hear what you want, not what you should. You only believe what you see. This is for you. NASA can verify its authenticity. If you can help us, Griffin is your contact. Thank you.
How old are you?
Old enough to never forget.
Why are you here?
Answers. You honestly don't believe we're the only ones here, do you?
Where are you from?
Earth.
General Rieger, please.
What is it? Samson's signal has reappeared.
Where?
Field. 10 kilometers from the city.
No, just wanted, or more like demanded, a meeting. And he flew from Colorado to Brussels? Oh, must be important. Bill?
Yes, Madam President.
I need a moment. If Rieger learns what brought a Holocaust to your world, you're gonna have to explain to this one why your people have been here for the last 2,000 plus years.
That's why it's imperative we find our parents. If they talked under pressure.
Elizabeth, I understand. But understand me. I'm only interested in protecting this planet, or as you people call it, the First World.